Hi, this video is called Geoblocking, How You're Being Blocked. It's a quick presentation to just explore some of the technical methods used to implement geoblocking or the geographic restrictions you'll see when you try and access various websites, everything from flight sites, hotel sites, online media is obviously one of the big ones, sites like Netflix, Hulu, BBC, stuff like that, and all sorts of services really. Basically it's being blocked because of where you are, but how do these sites do it? So let's have a quick look. Okay, well the big one, the number one by a long way, is called IP geolocation. This is when a website or an application or whatever maps your IP address, that internet protocol, that magic number that everybody has to have when they connect to the internet, and they map it to a physical location using pretty much nothing more than an address book, really. There's specialized geolocation databases that contain where that IP address range is registered and which specific region it's being used, and it's remarkably accurate. It does make mistakes, but almost always gets the country right, and sometimes a lot more specific than that. So basically, if you've got an American IP address, they will be able to tell you're in America, or whether you have a UK, German, Dutch, whatever. What happens when they detect your IP address? Well, the real-world implementation, of course, is things like streaming services displaying that this content is not available in your region. E-commerce sites giving you different prices, so you'll get a different price from a user in a different country, or in fact you won't be allowed to buy something quite often. And new sites have regional content restrictions. There's hundreds and hundreds of others, but that's just a couple of examples. So IP geolocation is the big one, and of course you can use a VPN service to bypass that. We recommend a VPN, which is inexpensive and works great with geolocation, called NordVPN. It's in the description below. DNS resolution and region binding. These are two big ones as well. DNS resolution is kind of an annoying one for me as well. What happens is you get region-based DNS servers, which actually will return different IP addresses for the same domain. So the IP address I get in the UK for, say, Netflix might be different from the IP address you get in China for Netflix, or Japan, or something like that. This is because these sites use a regional DNS to route to specific servers. So the US DNS users will go to US content servers with different libraries. It works quite well for the big company sites. You can bypass it, of course, because you have control over setting your DNS settings, but be wary. Lots and lots of devices now are hard coding DNS, so you can't do this. Things like Roku and Chromecast will hard code the DNS servers that they go and ask when they're being used. So you can't tell a Roku, for instance, to use a different DNS server. It'll just override it and go to the DNS server that's set up in its firmware. This is particularly annoying for things. There is a solution called Smart DNS that works really well, where you just change your DNS settings and you can bypass geolocation IP like that. But of course, if you can't change your DNS servers, that won't work. Another one that's used is account region binding. Basically, when you log on to a site the first time, or you create your account, wherever you are then locks your account to that region. So if I go and use the games platform Steam and I set up my account in Mexico because there's great prices and everything, I will then my account will be linked to Mexico. So I can't go and use it properly in the US or the UK or whatever, and vice versa. So it basically locks game availability, beg your pardon. So you'll find that you can't actually use your account or play your games when you're in a different country. You can create different accounts as well, but that's not always that easy to do. Okay, another important one, and this is probably the hardest to get round. As I say, most IP geolocation is the big one with the using your IP address, which you can bypass using a decent VPN service. This is a bit of a problem, and lots of sites also verify your identity using financial and payment verification. Lots of service will only accept credit cards or payment methods used in a specific country. So, if you're trying to buy a US only service, they will only allow you to buy it with a US credit card. This is often on top of the IP geolocation. So you can use the VPN, but you also need a form of payment, either from a friend or a colleague or some sort of trickery. They also can use the billing address verification. Now, this can be spoofed. You can often change the last couple of lines of your address to full, so you can get your card verified by using the first couple of lines of your address, but then change the actual state or the county or the country, and it will still work. But lots of sites will check the billing address on your card, and if it's not in the same place, so you use your VPN, you connect to Hulu, great. You're using the US version of Hulu, it's all working perfectly until you come to pay for your subscription. You must have a US form of payment. There's lots and lots of ways around this. It's quite difficult to do those, and a lot of these methods are very unreliable. I would think quite carefully if you do want to get past financial and payment verification, because it might not be worth the hassle. Implementation example, as I said, Hulu is the big one, which only accept US payment methods. But many other sites check your address as well, your billing address as well. Okay, mobile-specific geoblocking techniques. Unfortunately, trying to get services on a mobile is even more difficult to get past geoblocking because they have more options. They've got something called mobile carrier detection, where applications can actually detect SIM card information and mobile network details to determine your location. So although you could be using a VPN, this could give you away. There's things like network MCC and MNC codes, which I can identify the country you're in and the carrier you're using on your mobile device. It's difficult to spoof these without actually changing the SIM. I've not seen many of these available, but I'm not a big mobile device user. But apparently they're used mainly in mobile-only streaming services. So if you've got anything like that, a VPN or something might not be enough if they use these techniques. Also, apps, GPS and HTML5 location APIs, apps and websites can actually request direct access to your precise location data that, of course, your phone or your tablet or stuff will know where you are very exactly through GPS. This does require explicit user permission, so the app or website will have to ask you for permission unless you've configured it to allow automatically. This is really accurate location data, so it'll know pretty much exactly where you are. Primarily, as to say, used in mobile applications with location-specific features. So, okay, if you're using something that needs to know where you are, like an ordering app in a bar chain, and they need to know which bar chain you're in, and things like that, okay? Browser language detection, I won't talk much about this. If you want to read about this, just pause the video. And you can read through. Basically, it's not really. This is data supplied by your browser. Things like default languages from your computer and the browser you're using. There's some information there if you want to read. It's dead easy to spoof, and nobody really bothers that much without it. A few years ago, ITVX used to block access based on the time zone that was set on your computer. I don't think they do that now, because obviously you can change your time zone quite easily. But this sort of stuff was in common use a few years ago, but there's not a lot of better methods now for geolocation. So, key takeaways. Basically, most websites that are difficult to get into use a layered approach. The primary method is definitely IP geolocation. Geoblocking survives on that, and usually a VPN will get you round this 9 times out of 10. When people use the layered approach, they use IP geolocation, and then they supplement that by things like the payment verification method. Of course, that relies on it being a paid site. So, for instance, I use a VPN with BBC iPlayer, which is completely free, so you don't need any to supply any payment information there, so it works perfectly. But payment verification is quite difficult to get past, and account region binding, but again you can sort of spoof that or create a new account on the basis of a VPN as well. So if you want a version of Steam in Mexico, USA, Germany, you can use that with a VPN. But remember, you might not be able to play the games without setting up the appropriate VPN connection. Mobile evolution, this is going to change things and going to make geo-blocking quite difficult to get past in using mobile devices and mobile applications. Okay, well, hopefully that summarized something and been of use to someone out there. Anyway, have a nice day and have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye for now.